Hello, thank you for coming back. We're now going to continue with our second topic, or the second part. But before I continue, let's remind ourselves of what we discussed in topic 1, which was basically to help us appreciate the concept of culture. And we all learned that culture is about how a group of people do things, how they live. And everyone belongs to groups, whether it's a church or at the workplace, or it could be a football club, or it could be, a mosque. We have ways of doing it, and that is culture. And these cultures, even though they are different, none should be seen as superior. And so it is very important for us. And we're now continuing, we're still discussing the same culture, but this time we're looking at certain things. They are very important concepts that have something to do with culture. Some are negative behaviors and others, and so are not also too negative, but we need to understand them so that in our leadership roles we will be able to behave appropriately without engaging in this. And these concepts include ethnocentrism. When we talk about ethnocentrism, it's very important for us to understand that every human being establishes, forms value system. By value, we are talking about the tendency for one to use his or her own cultural standards to judge the rest of the world. And so, for instance, you can look at somebody, a lady, and say, this lady is very beautiful. But it's subjective. In your culture, you have features, you have attributes that to you use in judging people as beautiful. Or you can say that, this man is a very good man. It is defined by your culture. Probably the person gives alms, the person gives gifts. That is your definition. Elsewhere, you can't go and say that whoever gives gifts is a good person. And so it is, value simply means the tendency for us to use what is in our culture to judge others. And the concept of ethnocentrism is from the values. And it is the belief that one's own culture and subculture are inherently superior to other cultures. In Ghana, for instance, we say no one uses the left hand to point at the farthest village. What that literally means is that the things that we share in, the things that we believe in, the things that belong to us, consciously or unconsciously, we always use them or we see them as superior to what people have. So in your own countries, in Sierra Leone, if you are to decide to have a local language as a national language now, or Nigeria, we want to have a single local language as a national language. I doubt if there is anyone who will come out and say that even though I'm from the Igbo land, I think we should use a Yoruba language. No, it will never. And so that is there. We all love them. But there is the tendency for us, especially as young leaders, to use our love, our understanding, our appreciation of what belongs to us or what is in our culture to judge the others. And unfortunately, since we are in a position to influence people, if we have this mentality, it means we are going to impose certain things on people. And so we're talking about the tendency for individuals to place their own group at the center of whatever they are doing. And so, even if you are not careful, you will favor people from your background compared to the others who are not from your background. And so we're talking about something that no one can run away from. This is not something that you can say, I will not, or I'm not. No. If you go to the USA, the Americans will love the America and the Americans and the American flag more than they will do for UK. Definitely. And then Nigerians will do the same more than you do for Ghana. But how are we controlling this? It is innate. It is part of us. Our ability to manage it is very important because it can be a major obstacle to effective teamwork and working with colleagues. Because if you are not careful, even when you hear people speak their local language, some people get irritated. You hear people sing or people play certain types of music and you have a problem. People request for certain food and the way you do your face, how you frown your face, it speaks to them. But I can assure you, people will not take it kindly if you look down on how they do their things. The clothes they wear, how they greet, and how they do any other thing that you also do. And so that is ethnocentrism. Another important concept that is in culture that we need to appreciate is prejudice. It's very important. Prejudice is negative, but there is a tendency for us to apply it. What is prejudice? We're talking about a belief, established understanding. It's a fixed attitude that people hold about others, be individuals or groups, but this perception, this orientation, this belief that people do have are baseless. They are not based on any data. It is common to find, especially in Africa, to find people describing others as arrogant. And then it will become as if you poured a kerosene on the tiles. So, the man is arrogant with no base. Sometimes they have never encountered or experienced that person. And then another person, have you heard? They say this man is arrogant too. This man is, and then you meet the man and you have that at the back of your mind. If you are not careful, you confront this man. And so when you talk about prejudice, we're talking about adverse feeling or opinion that is formed without regard for the facts. And so sometimes we ask people, what you are saying, what you are telling me, I'm the leader. You are saying, hey boss, sometimes we whisper. They come and then they gossip. Boss, this lady, be careful. Oh. It's like this. Whatever she hears, she will go and say it. Yes. And you are not careful immediately because of the value you place on the person who gave you the information. If your boss tells you to be very careful with a subordinate, what will you do? Immediately, if you are not careful, you form your opinion and you relate to that person based on that. It's prejudice. You need fact, scientific fact, hard facts. Even if someone has helped you with such an information, conduct your own informal research and make sure. Otherwise, you will leave so many people who can contribute significantly to the attainment of your goals out simply because people say. And all of us, we experience it. How many of us have not confessed that, until I met him, I didn't know. Until I saw, so you were this nice. As soon as you say this, it means you had a prejudice earlier on. And so let's be very careful about this important concept. And so prejudice is self-oriented rather than other-oriented. You're always trying to defend yourself. You are trying to guard against others. And there is a very difficult situation. There are several examples whereby people use prejudice, and because of that, they are not able to get the best out of their subordinates. And then a related one is discrimination. When you talk about discrimination, we are talking about because of prejudice, because of stereotype, what we are going to talk about, because of ethnocentrism, you decide to treat people differently. And it's very important for us. As soon as you treat people differently, you can never get the best of your subordinates or your colleagues or your boss or your bosses. Why? Because the feeling that I am not treated fairly alone demotivates. The sense that I am being discriminated against alone is enough incentive for people to produce. And sometimes it's not always about actually discriminating. Sometimes you hear basis of doing certain things. But in leadership, one of the important things we need to understand is the concept of impropriety, appearance of impropriety. It doesn't matter whether you did something bad or what you did was good. Once you are perceived as someone who is doing bad, I can assure you, That is the basis for which people will deal and treat you. So, for instance, if let me use a practical example. If you're a pastor, you're a church leader, and your church you don't drink. We all know all over our part of the world. When I was in Sierra Leone, if you're in Liberia, you are in La Côte d'Ivoire, wherever you are, the areas where they sell alcoholic beverages, they are one of the best places you can get a soft drink or even water. So this man of God is passing. There's nowhere. You walk in, you have your small bottle of water, you finish the bottle, you drop it, you clean in your lips, and the church member comes. What happens? If you're not careful, before the church member asks you a question, you start explaining yourself. But you've done nothing wrong, but it appears as if you are doing something wrong. And in the offices, it can happen that way. You are always giving an assignment to one person. You have a genuine reason, scientific reason. And even if you are to communicate this reason to the others, they will accept the reason why you have to continue doing that. But the perception is that you like that person more than the others. So we have to be very careful. We are doing all this simply because people have acquired their own attitude and habits over 25 years, 30 years, 20 years, 15. And suddenly you are going to be with them for 6 months. And you want them to put all this aside and follow the things that you tell them. That could be very, very difficult. And so it is very important for us to understand. Stereotype is there, and stereotype compared to prejudice. Prejudice is more or less based on falsehood. The basis of your perception is wrong. But when talk about stereotype, we are talking about something that is based on some facts. Just that you are using the facts irrationally. Irrationally simply means illogically. You can't link the fact to the conclusion you are drawing. Yes, a pastor defrauds a church member. That is it. It's established. It would be wrong to say that pastors defraud their congregation. And that is a stereotype. It has happened to one member of that subset. It doesn't mean that everyone who comes from that subset will behave in the same way. So we define it, or I have defined it here as a rigid. You don't make provision for changes. You fix it. Exaggerated, irrational, and typically negative belief or image associated with a group of people. And so we say that people from here are like that, these people are like that, these people are, and sometimes they even link it to nationalities. So you are approaching the person mentions the country, and hey, you have to stay back because they are noted for. It is never true. So you are telling me that in that group you can't get a decent, honest, hardworking person to help you to achieve your objective. If you are going to recruit, it is bad for you to use that because you may leave some of the good materials. But if they are already in the organization, it is even worse to have such an attitude. And so these are some of the things that we need to understand because people are different. And the fact that people will talk and use the left hand doesn't mean that they are arrogant. Who says using the left hand is arrogant? If you go to Nigeria, it is very common. Nigerian wouldn't understand why the right hand is holding something and I have to give you something in the left. I have to ask for permission or drop whatever I have in the right hand to put it in the right before. No. It's normal. They can greet you, whether you are the mom, the pastor, everything they can use the left hand. You come to Ghana and do that, you are in trouble. You can't do it. We don't accept it because the left hand is seen as a taboo. Using it as a taboo is strictly prohibited, not even a child. And on few occasions that you are permitted to use it, you have to always qualify it by saying that I'm sorry for giving you something through the left hand. And so it is very important. And another important concept which we're going to discuss closely is diversity and multiculturalism. When we talk about diversity, we're talking about a group that consists of people from different cultures. So diverse background. That is diversity. And then we talk about multiculturalism, where we have a system that takes into consideration more than one culture. So for instance, if an organization employs people consciously to come from different cultures, we see that that organization is a multicultural organization because it has people of diverse background. It has diversity in them. And you can see from the picture here, they are all not white. This one is, this at least 4 different colors, and all of them working together. We see that there's a diverse population, and if they are to work in a particular organization, we see that that organization is a multicultural organization. Racism, as we're talking about prejudice, there are so many types. They are based on so many things, and you can see 6 of them. People form, I explained them, people form their own prejudice, their own thinking, their own orientation because of where people come from. To say, people from here, I mentioned that they behave like this. Sometimes gender, sex. Women are like that. Women are supposed to do this. Men are supposed to do that. And so it's very common for us to describe. In fact, in my country, we even call some men by ladies' names because their behavior and their orientation appears to be lady. What it means is that we have crafted a kind of attitude for males and female. So once you're a female, you don't have to go beyond this point. Otherwise, sometimes they describe them as stature, and then the others. And yes, and there are so many. So as we go along, we can add what are some of the bases of having this social prejudice. Nationalism is very common, and religion is one of the. People have certain orientation. So as soon as you mention you are a Muslim, or the person is coming from this particular country, even you go to the international airport, and the screening that they do, they look at your passport. Once you are from a certain part, you have to be taken into that inner room. And age is very important, and classic history, the fundamentals are all important. And so it is very important for us to understand when we talk about the concept of prejudice as a leader, we should be very careful not to determine, not to decide, not to act because of the race of the people who we are leading. What about gender? Gender. Sometimes we are tempted to assign responsibilities based on gender. Nationalism. We tend to be so uncomfortable with certain nations, people coming from certain countries. Why? Because prejudice, the tendency. And so it's very important. And I mentioned, I've explained religion. Religion to the extent that even in our own social lives, there are people that we decide not to relate. At least we can relate, but it has to be at a certain level. Employing or working with people, some people are more comfortable working with people who share their faith. But to me, it is one of the terrible mistakes to make. If you want to employ and work with people because you attend the same church, because it can bring about corruption, it can bring about indiscipline, it can bring about so many things. And the other. So this is how we end the second part about the concepts that we need to be careful with, that they are there and they influence the way we lead. They influence, if you believe that your subordinates come from a particular country that has a certain tendency to behave in a certain way, you are more likely to adopt a style. But you get there only for you to realize that after all, it wasn't what you were thinking. So let's deal with people with open mind. Of course, we have to, one of the rules that Mintzberg discusses that every effective leader must be able to perform is to monitor. Monitor simply means scan through the environment, open your eyes and ears, make sure you do your own investigation, and then if you have enough grounds to suspect people, then you know how to deal with them. So thank you for being with me for this session as well. Good. So hello, welcome back to our final but equally important topic, and that is cultural diversity in organizations. Before we ended the topic 2, we learned so many things about the fact that every human being has a personality that is defined by who gave birth to you and where and what you have done with that body since birth, and that is culture. And so based on this culture, we also looked at the tendency for us to use our experience to treat people in certain ways that might not support our leadership rules. And this includes prejudice, ethnocentrism, stereotyping, and discrimination, which we may do based on people's gender, religion, and the others. And so now